Alongside Michael Burns, the women's beat writer, I'm Marley Pope, the men's beat writer. Burns, we'll start with you for the woman. Let's start with recapping the last couple games of the regular season and what you saw from the team.
Yeah, so Marist was on a 4-game winning streak. Those were wins against Canisius, Sacred Heart, Niagara, and St. Peter's. In the St. Peter's game, Lexi Terrell hit a game winner to win 63-61, and then Marist secured a first-round bye, meaning that they had the 4th or 5th seed already locked up. With that win, they also secured double-digit win improvement from last season, so making strides there. And then the last 2 games of the season, they both dropped. One was against MAAC and one was against Mount St. Mary's. So there's the thought of entering the tournament hot, how much that can help you, and also entering the tournament low and having a couple losses in a row. But since they already secured the 4th and the 5th seed, it's interesting to see how they play that, how they either enter based on that 4-game win streak or the 2-game losses. But yeah, definitely improvements from last season. Double-digit win improvement, as I said before.
Yeah, and for the tournament, they faced the Mount once again in the 4-5 matchup last year. They faced the Mount in the 6-11 matchup and lost. What are you looking to see in that game, and what did you take away from their recent game against Mount St. Mary's?
Yeah, so in that recent game, Marist has played Mount St. Mary's twice this year. They won the first one 61-50, dropped the last game of the season 61-50 as well. So it's about as even as it can get for a matchup.
For sure, yeah.
But yeah, dropped that last game at home. It was senior day, so they started seniors, but at the same time, it was still a highly competitive matchup. Mount St. Mary's, in the first victory that they played against Marist, was playing a man defense. And in this most recent game, they switched to a 2-3 zone, extended 2-3 zone, and a lot of the times they were pressing, and it was mainly a 2-2-1 formation. And in that first half against Mount St. Mary's, Marist was up 20-9 after the first quarter. And Mount St. Mary's couldn't totally find a groove on offense. And they were firing a lot of three-pointers, not making them, but still stay persistent with it. And eventually they started to fall. In the second quarter, they ended on an 18-2 run. And honestly, throughout the first quarter, the way that Marist was shooting it, it was kind of hard to notice. But after that run happened, you look at the scoreboard and you see they had 13 turnovers in the first half. Kind of came up out of nowhere. And then in the second half, they tried to limit that. They had 5 turnovers in the second half, but just couldn't fully find a groove on offense. And again, Mount St. Mary's 33 three-pointers in that game, made 10 of them. So they're a team that's going to live or die by the three-pointer. They're first in the MAAC in three-point percentage, so definitely look for that in tomorrow's matchup. They're gonna be shooting from beyond the arc often.
And with Marist losing that game, what are some things they need to adjust to on the offensive end so that they're not scoring in the 50s and gives them a better chance to win if they're scoring more points?
Yeah, it's happened a few times this season where first half they look sharp, like they're knocking out shots, and they kind of hide the fact that they've turned the ball over. And then in the second half, it's like they notice that they have this many turnovers and try to limit it in the second half, and it kind of prevents them from staying in that offensive groove. It's like their mindset is so, let's limit turnovers, let's take care of the basketball, that it can hold them back from knocking down shots. It gets in their head.
Maybe they're playing they're playing less free, and they're a little bit more.
Exactly.
They feel a little bit more boxed in.
Exactly, correct. Okay. So you have to see how Marist can find that balance between taking care of the basketball, because that's obviously important. But they have to keep knocking down shots. So trying to stay more in a full-on groove rather than doing one thing well and not the other.
And before we go on to the men's side, my last question for you is, what do they need to do to limit Mount from attempting so many three-pointers? Is it limiting the dribble drive? Is it not doubling the post? Is it not over-helping on rotations?
Yeah.
What do they need to do so that Mount can't get up the three-pointers that they like to?
Yeah, so I asked Dowdy after the game if 33 three-point attempts is a lot, and she was like, yeah, that's a lot for them to take. And so I also asked how they go about preventing that from stopping. She mentioned how they're good off the dribble, which they are, so they have to account for that as well. They were playing a zone defense, which is something that they've done a few times this season, and Mount St. Mary's was kind of beating them through dribble penetration. Marist would collapse on them, and then they would just kick it out for three-pointers. Once they switched to a man defense, it seemed to be working a little bit better. Where they were preventing more three-pointers, but Mount St. Mary's was still able to get some close mid-range shots and layups. So It's a tough way to play it defense-wise. If they're looking to prevent three-pointers, they got to stick to a man because of the way that Matt was able to dribble penetration, force collapse, and then have open three-pointers.
Yeah.
And you don't want to give a team that's first in the MAAC in three-pointers open shots. So
maybe they could try to funnel, like run players off the three-point line and funnel players at Morgan Lee where she can maybe contest or block some shots.
Yep. I mean, Morgan Lee is first in the MAAC in blocks, 2.4 per game. So it's definitely a strong shoot. Strong spot. Definitely able to protect the paint. So, that's definitely one way to play it for sure.
Well, we will see what the women can do tomorrow. They play Mount at noon p.m. here in Atlantic City at Gene Whelan Boardwalk Hall. Now going on to the men's side, they also play tomorrow on Thursday. They play at 8:30 p.m. They are the number 3 seed playing the Mount, who are the number 6 seed. And for me, the last couple games of the regular season for Marist was a struggle. They lost the last 4. They didn't look like themselves. They didn't score more than 60 points in any of the games, and that was with Jackson Price coming back for 2 of them. So for them, this is with the rest from playing Saturday. Now they play Thursday. They have several days of rest where I think the goal should be to reset mentally and physically, because those last games of the regular season really hurt them mentally just because of how many games they're winning the season. Remember, they won 20 games for the 5th time in program history. So they were winning a ton of games. And once Jackson got hurt, January 31st, the season kind of took a turn a bit. And even though he came back, they lost 2 games, one at home against Merrimack and then at the Mount. So the rest gives them a chance to kind of reset mentally and get their heads right before tomorrow's game. For the last game against the Mount, what I noticed was Jackson did come back, and he looked really good. I think he knocked the rust off for the most part. He was the most efficient player offensively for Marist. He had 13 points. He had 3 3-pointers, and I think he played 22, 23 minutes, so that's around his season average. And I think just him being out there kind of opened up the offense more. It was genuinely the first time I've seen in weeks that Josh Pasquarelli took a dribble handoff and was able to turn and possibly shoot without getting double-teamed, just because of Jackson being the guy on the floor with him. And I think those two, what they can combine to do is very important to the Marist offense. It's probably the most effective part of their offense, where Josh gets a dribble handoff from Jackson, or they run a ball screen and Jackson's popping or setting a screen for Josh to be open, and it just creates so much conflict for the defense that they didn't have for that 8-game absence, where Jackson was out. And now that he's back, I think this tomorrow gives them a chance to kind of get their offensive mojo back, which they had for much of the season, where they were executing at a high level and kind of hid some of the turnover and free throw issues that the Red Foxes do have. Right now, they're turning the ball over almost every 1 out of 5 possessions, 20%, which is definitely not the number they want.
Right.
And then because they don't get to the free throw line, and they also don't make free throws at a great rate, they have to hit their shots at a very efficient level. And they need Jackson for that because of the way he spaces the floor and opens up the offense.
Yep. Kind of want to ask you, based on what you saw against the Mount, you touched upon it there, but just what are some more keys to the game outside of just Jackson and Josh and what they can do, as well as what Mount is capable on the offensive end?
Yeah, so switching to the defensive end, Mount had a pretty good shooting game across the board. They hit, I think they were 9 of 20 from 3, and they were over 43% from the field. So what Marist needs to do defensively is one, protect the paint. Mount is a very physical team. They love to pound the paint. Dola Adebayo is a very good player. Jetty Cordelia is a very good player. Fortunately for Marist, Terrell Art Jr., who is Mount's 6th man, averages 10.7 rebounds a game, is a 6'8" forward, very good player. He's out. He's injured. So that gives Marist a bit of a better chance to protect the paint, and that'll be the key. The other key is Mount likes to, similar to the women's team, they do attempt threes at a pretty good rate. I think 3rd in the MAAC in attempting 3-pointers. So that's another important thing. You don't, similar to what the women need to do, have to protect from dribble penetration. Like Dallas Hobbs is a very good guard who likes to get into the paint, is a very quick guy who likes to pass as well. Xavier Lipscomb is their leading assist man, averaging 4 a game. He likes to dribble penetrate and find guys in spots. So on-ball defense is going to have to be on point for Marist, and to limit those 3-point opportunities that they do generate. And I think the main key is to really try to defend Dola Adebayo. He's their leading scorer, all MAAC player. He had a double-double last game, And that's going to be Jane Daughtry's job at the 4 spot. He's going to have to defend without fouling, contest shots. If he doesn't get in foul trouble, he can stay in the game, have a bigger impact, and stay in rhythm because he is Marist's best defender, really. He impacts the game so much with his ability to block shots, ability to get steals, and also he's probably Marist's best rebounder as well. So keeping him out of foul trouble and keeping him on Dola Adebayo for much of the game is going to be the best way Marist can stifle Mount defensively.
Mount has a couple of key injuries. How can those impact the game?
Yeah, so like I said, Terrell Orr Jr. is going to be out. He's their 6th man. He allows Mount to play big all the time, have 2 bigs on the floor that can attack the paint, that can play great defense and rebound. So him being out, that shortens their rotation a little bit. And then last game, Carmelo Pacheco, who is Mount's best shooter, one of the best shooters in the country, frankly, he shoots 46% from 3. He injured his finger early on in the first half, and he did not return. Mount was still able to win. Their depth was still able to produce what they needed to get that win. But in this game, if he's out, Marist, that could be an advantage for Marist because he is their best shooter. They set plays for him. They find him on relocations, on dribble drives. So if he's out and he's their best shooter, that's going to be a big impact for Mount. And if those 2 guys are out, we don't know the status of Pacheco. I really have no idea if what that status is with his finger injury. But him not playing at all last game could be a sign. We don't really know. So we'll see tomorrow if he's in warm-ups, if he starts like he normally does. But if he's out along with Terrell Orr Jr., Marist has a big advantage in terms of the rotation because Mount already doesn't have the biggest rotation. They run 7, 8 guys, and that could be an advantage for Marist, who likes to run 9 guys in the first half, and then in the second half load the minutes on their starters to pull away.
One real quick thing that I want to touch on for Mount St. Mary's for the women's side. They have 3 players that are in the top 10 in 3-point percent shooting from in the MAAC. Those are Anna Lemasser, Joe Raffalo, and Gabrielle Kernerly. And Lemasser is the top 3-point percentage shooter. So it's another thing to look for, just how Marist is able to prevent those 3 specifically, but just Mount St. Mary's in general from taking shots from downtown.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mike. So with that being said, we will see you tomorrow. Marist taking on Mount on the men's and women's side. We'll see what they can do if they can advance in Atlantic City. Thank you for tuning in, and have a good rest of your day.